That was my fear going into my first baby. As an OB nurse on the unit that I worked, that was my fear. And what I've learned with, some in my many years of, because my first baby was an emergency C-section, so my fear happened, except I delivered vaginally in the emergency in the operating room because the assistant surgeon hadn't showed up for an hour, and I started pushing, and so I actually had my fear happen. So that's what led to the trauma. So I didn't know. I was only 24, right? But the more the older I get and the more that I've had to deal with, I and what Pam England talks about is facing your fear. Okay, what if that happens? Like it's called your tiger, whatever it is. Moms will tell me, I'm afraid of hemorrhage. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of shoulder dystocia. I'm afraid I'm gonna, have my baby at home with nobody. Everyone has a fear, but that is, if you prepare in advance, there's two things. One is an actual emergency, and one is an unnecessary cesarean that they're trying to recommend. That baby's fine, and you had to have an emergency C-section when it really wasn't. And then how do you deal with that, right? So that's why it's so crucial to prepare in advance, because when you get into labor, you have to let go and surrender to spirit, to God, to the powers that be. You've hired a team, you have an advocate, you did your preparation. If an emergency happens, I mean, I am a spiritual person. I believe if an actual emergency happens, I am grateful that I'm in the hospital for the life-saving interventions that save me or my baby. You have to turn it into, then I'm grateful. Yeah, you might have some trauma, and I've helped people, heal with birth trauma, but sometimes emergencies happen, rare. In a healthy pregnancy, you have such a high rate, like the chances of, if a healthy mom is having a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby, the chances of having an emergency when no one is touching and interfering are so low, right? So low. But if you have one, we have to be grateful we have to get it. That's a spiritual practice, to know that everything that happens is happening for us, and is perfect, right? But that might take some time to process. I think the harder thing to deal with, which happens more commonly, is when they act like and tell you it's an emergency and it's not. So then interventions happen that were unnecessary, and then complications from that, or having to process a C-section for an emergency because the baby was in distress. This is the most common reason for unnecessary C-sections, is misreading the fetal heart rate tones. And then the baby comes out with a 9-9 Apgar, screaming like no issue. So then that's another thing to have to deal with, that was unnecessary. But even if it was unnecessary, it did happen to you. So then it was meant to happen to you, and we grow through what we go through. So when you're in it, you just, you have to just, you're going to face one moment at a time. You get a now clock. Every moment is now. And you're just dealing with each now, each breath, each contraction, each surge. And that's all you can do. Was it Mark Twain? He wasn't even a yogi, who said, all of my life was filled with the worst catastrophes, none of which ever happened. So our what ifing, right? It can make us scared, and fear and stress sort of, shut down labor and make us feel awful and suffer. So actually what he's saying is that his life was destroyed by what if thinking and worrying. So sometimes we can't always get rid of the worry. So what is courage? Facing the fear,